Hey, friend, are you feeling overwhelmed by emotions, especially in parenting, marriage, or work? Then listen up. I love helping women learn and implement powerful emotional management tools in a small group environment so they can handle everyday feelings with more calm, more clarity, and more confidence. It's called the Emotional Confidence Club. And right now, we're open to new members. If you're ready for more peace and less stress in your life, apply now for the Emotional Confidence Club at aliciamichelle.com/club. Hi, I'm Alicia Michelle, best-selling author and ICF certified Christian mindset coach. I've helped tens of thousands discover how to build emotional confidence using practical, science, and scripture-based mindset tools. If you're ready for less overwhelm, healthier relationships, and more calm and freedom in Christ, you are in the right place. Let's get started. Hi there. Welcome to today's episode of the Christian Mindset Coach with me, Alicia Michelle. We have an episode today that is going to hit home, convict you, probably like you haven't been convicted in a while, and give you lots of practical stuff. It is this amazing conversation with Dave and Ann Wilson of Family Life. Have you not heard of them and the work that they do? They are amazing. They've written so many books. I can't wait to dig into this a little bit. Let's first talk about this big frustration we are covering today. And that is, have you ever been so frustrated about your spouse? Now, specifically, we're going to talk about husbands because we are typically a podcast that talks to women. And this book that they've written is for women. So I'm just going to say it. It could be a spouse, but we're going to talk about it from a women's perspective. Have you ever been so frustrated with your husband because you see things that you're like, if you only did this, or why can't you try this? And then you tell them and it doesn't change. And you're like, why won't you just fix this? You get stuck in this dialogue of frustration and anger, and you feel unheard. You get in this pattern of negativity, and then he pulls away more. And you're like, what in the world is going on? This is not the person I thought I married. All of this stuff can start to happen. So, how can we see these frustrations in marriage with a spouse? And how can we communicate that in a way that doesn't tear them down? It doesn't make them want to run the other way when we talk about it without being fake, without invalidating what we're feeling or just pretending it doesn't exist. Such a huge issue in marriage. If you have not experienced it before, you probably will at some point in your marriage. As someone who's been married for 24 years, I can tell you that yes, it has come up in my marriage. And I love the advice that this couple shares in their book. I'm going to share the title of this book. It's called How to Speak Life to Your Husband When All You Want to Do Is Yell at Him. Ann and Dave Wilson, they're best-selling authors. They are the former co-founders of Kensington Church and former chaplains for the Detroit Lions. They now serve as Family Life Today radio and podcast hosts and as nationally beloved marriage speakers. They have appeared on NBC's Today Show and many other podcasts and media outlets. They've been married for more than 40 years and have 3 grown sons and a multitude of grandchildren. There is so much wisdom that they talk about in our conversation and in this book. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today, Ann and Dave. How are you guys?
We are good, and we're glad to be here.
Alicia, I keep thinking, like, why didn't I meet you 10 years ago? You could have helped our marriage so much.
Yeah, but then we wouldn't have a book.
True.
I honestly feel the same way about this latest book that you wrote. I read it and I've been thinking, oh my Lord, the Lord's just kind of like tapping in some areas where I love the things that you talk about. I'm really excited to dig into some of this today. In fact, I think one of the first things that I appreciate is that you don't invalidate the feelings that a spouse, specifically a wife, because Anne, you were the key person who wrote this book. You
Yeah.
don't invalidate those feelings we have about some of the frustrations. You're saying that if we have these criticisms, there's probably a good reason behind them and there's validity, but you do this beautiful job of sharing how to talk about these in a way that's healing and not hurting.
That's really nice of you to say, because for years, I was not very nice in the way I talked to Dave. And the
Yeah.
reason was because I thought I was so right.
Mm.
My thoughts were, If you would only get your act together, we could be so great. If only you would put as much energy into our marriage as you put outside our marriage, we could
Mm,
be so great. If only you would spiritually lead like I thought you would, we could be so great. I have struggled with
mm,
that. And I think a lot of women do. Some of us verbalize it, and some of us just push it down our
mm,
spouse and even our kids, because we can do this with our kids too. It's our way of being that communicates
mm.
probably more than even our words.
And then I thought it was really valuable that it wasn't just you, Anne, saying,
Mm.
"This is where I've been. This is what God's taught me." But Dave, you were there saying, "Yeah, that happened. And here's how it helped me when she started doing things a little differently." So, what was that like for you to kind of relive some of this?
When we speak on stage,
Yeah.
especially when we talk about this topic, how to speak life to your husband when all you want to do is yell at him, I feel like I can come in at the end and say, here's my experience as Anne's husband. Ask your husband if he has a similar experience, because I think I represent a lot of guys. I was hoping the wife would read this and then go to her husband and say, hey, Dave said this. Is this you? Most of the time he's going to go, yep, that's me. And that can start a conversation where I can be his voice. Maybe your husband's totally different, but either way, it's going to be a good conversation. But if he's like me, ask him this: has he felt booed? The story
Yeah.
that opens the book about feeling booed, ask him. That could be a really healthy conversation and a hard one.
Yeah.
And you know what I appreciate about what you said, Dave, is that you weren't like, nah, she's wrong. I never was like that. You were like, that probably was true. It was just the way that it was communicated. And you gave this beautiful example of a house plant being chopped down with our words. So can you give us that analogy and share more about that? And then there was even a great story about an elderly couple after that. So
Yeah.
tell us about that.
It might be good to start out with where it started. I felt like I was a really good wife. I'm taking care of the kids.
And you
I
were.
I have a majority load on me in terms of family stuff.
Yeah.
So I think our kids were in elementary school when this came about, but I was asked to come to speak at our church. Dave's a pastor. It was to moms of preschoolers. And I told Dave, oh my goodness, you should come with me. The women would love it. You're the pastor. You're great at this. And he goes, yeah, that'd be great. I'll do that. And we were at a like really taxed, maybe some of your listeners are at a stage where your life is so busy, your kids are crazy, you're just all over the place. Dave gets up and he starts sharing some things I had never heard him share ever.
Mm.
Goes, women, I don't know what if you get what it's like for us as guys. Because as little kids, usually we have someone cheering for us. Hey, mom, look, and oh, you're so good at that. Way to go. Yay. And we find what we're good at, or we have a teacher or coach or somebody that's like, hey, you're good at that. Good job. And they're cheering for us. And he goes, I was a college quarterback. So on Saturdays, I have people cheering for me. Dave Wilson, you're the man. And then he goes, and I meet Anne. And basically, she says, of all the men in the world, I choose you. He's amped up talking about
Yeah.
it. And I'm
Yeah.
sitting back on this stool. He's stood up now. He's talking. And I thought, wow, I've never heard him share any of this. But then
Yeah.
he drops this bomb and he goes, and then you know what happens? It's like after we're married for a while, we walk in the door at the end of the day, and it just feels like all I hear is boo, boo.
Mm,
I'm like, wait, what just happened? What in the world are you talking about? I
mm.
don't even know how we ended the talk because he had never in our lives said anything like this. We get in the car and I go, what was that? He goes, I don't know. It just came out. Like, you seriously think I'm booing you? I see all of it and I am helping you to get better by pointing out the things you're not doing so well in.
And I'm sort of like, do you think it's helping? Do you
Like,
working?
no, it's not working. And that's why I have to
Yeah.
point it out more. And then he said this. He goes, I don't know, Anne. And again, he's never said anything like this. He goes, it just feels like in your eyes, I can do nothing right. To tweak me or fix me or point out what I should do or what I shouldn't be doing. And honestly, it's exhausting.
I actually think the biggest thing I felt, and it's interesting, I've talked to a lot of husbands that have felt the same thing. I felt like she was disappointed in me.
Mm.
Like I wasn't the guy she thought she married. I wasn't the husband. I was blowing it in a lot of ways. I was lazy. I was not showing up. Her way of being was disappointment. I'm not blaming her for this, but I
Yeah.
felt myself running away from the home out there. They were like, "Hey, man, good job. You did a great job today." Come home,
Right.
she'd be like, "Why didn't you do it?" I'm like, "Okay." I'd get in my car and drive away. And again, it wasn't like that, but it was like I
Yeah.
was sort of
It's a
addicted
cycle.
to my job, which was
Yeah.
ministry. Who's going to say no to ministry? There are always needs. So I just found myself running away rather than running
Mm,
home in that season of our marriage.
This whole book is about God's journey of really not only transforming my words, but also
yeah.
my thoughts. Dave and I have failed in so many areas. And honestly, we want people to see marriage is difficult sometimes. We have hills and valleys. Let's help people, and maybe our struggle could help them. We've done this all over the country. I put a couple plants on the stage and I see this plant, like the plant represents our husbands. We picked this plant because it's lush and green. And we're like, look at him. Look at this man I married. But then we're married a while and we start seeing the reality of who we really are. He sees all my flaws. I see all of his flaws. And we kind of look at the plant like, oh, there's a brown leaf. We take our pruners and we're like, honey, you remember when you used to be so romantic and you were such a good communicator? Now you come in the door at the end of the day, put on ESPN, and all you do is watch TV. I want you to be more romantic. And we clip that off. And then we're like, and what happened to talking about our spiritual lives? I thought we'd pray more or whatever. So we clip that little leaf off because it's brown and withered. But then we think, oh, we're looking at the plant like there's so many brown leaves. And God
Mm,
put me in your life to help you be better. And so we get these hedge clippers out and start whacking away at all the ways they might be failing. And we think it's our job to fix you and help you. So we start whacking away to the point where now we're seeing all the negative and we've clipped down this good man because all we're seeing are the negative things. And so
mm,
there's really a stump. We've cut him down to nothing but a stump. The first time I did this, we were in a big auditorium at our church, and there is an older couple. They're the only ones left in the auditorium in their 80s. I walk up to them, and this man has his face in his hands, and these tears are just plopping on the floor, and he's crying. And I say to his wife, what's going on? She said, I don't know. He's been crying ever since you chopped up that plant. He lifts his head and he points to the plant on the stage and he said, that stump is me. And she said, I had no idea. He's never said anything. I honestly thought I was helping him. Alicia, I thought that too. I thought he's tough. This will motivate him, not knowing that my words were the most important words. Because I didn't think he doesn't need my praise. Everybody else is telling him he's great. But my words of negativity have a real effect. And I don't think sometimes guys talk about that or tell us. Dave didn't. Some husbands do, but Dave
right.
didn't.
I completely resonate with what you're saying, Anne. You feel like you're trying to help.
It's not out of maliciousness.
You're like, I would really like it if somebody said this about me.
Tell me the truth. But if it's constant, that feels like I can do nothing good in your life.
Yes. Yeah. So before we get to some better ways to talk about that, let's talk about what's going on inside the mind, how this is part of how our brains are unfortunately in collusion with us to keep this going. You do a great job of addressing some of that. So, first, the idea of negative thinking and how when we have a thought, when we begin to see the confirmation bias of it showing up, can you share what that process is like and what you discovered going through this? Hey there, it's Alicia. Do you love the science and scripture based tools that we talk about here on the show, but want some accountability and practical help applying these principles to your life? Well, then you're invited to apply for the Emotional Confidence Club. I like to think of the club as the lab where we implement the tools that we talk about here and in my book, Emotional Confidence. Imagine having the chance to interact with me live every week as you practice the 7 emotional management tools in our roadmap to help you manage emotions like fear, anxiety, guilt, shame, anger, and more. I love watching the lives of the women in the club transform in incredible ways, moving from overwhelmed and frustrated to calm and confident. You too can learn how to make these truths applicable to your situations and find emotional peace despite life's ongoing stress. Right now, we are welcoming in new members, but it is by application only. Does this sort of accountability, growth, and caring support as you apply these tools to your life, does that sound good to you? Then apply now for the Emotional Confidence Club at aliciamichelle.com/club. That's aliciamichelle.com/club.
When I went before God after our drive home from the boo story, I
Mm,
got on my knees and I said, God, do I boo Dave? After I vented a long time, can you believe he did that, Lord? But when I asked that question, I had this confirmation feeling, start paying attention to your thoughts. I want you to
yeah.
start listening to your words, not only to Dave, but your kids. So that took me on a journey. One of my favorite verses is Romans 12:2, which
Mm,
says, do not be conformed by this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind.
yeah.
I have struggled with my thoughts about myself for a
Mm,
long time. And so it would make sense that I'm struggling with my thoughts about Dave. And so I went on that journey. We create neurological pathways in our brains of how we're thinking about people. I'll give you an example. I was folding clothes one day and I was in that same neurological rut. He's never home. He doesn't put the energy into us. He's not here, even when he's here. He's not leading or praying. And so I'm going down that same path every
mm,
time. It did become a rut. Every time I start thinking about Dave, I see the negative. Then I felt this prompt from my spirit inside. This thought came to my mind. What would happen if you prayed for him as much as you complained about him?
wow.
That was so convicting. When you hear that, Alicia,
Yeah.
what do you think was going on in my brain?
I think there's a couple of things. Anytime we have a thought and we repeat that thought, the brain is saying this is something that she wants to keep doing. So it's
Mm,
going to start building a highway to the point that if it's done enough, the subconscious mind can take over and create a pattern there, which is a lot of time what happens with identity. People will say, I know God loves me logically, but why do I not act from it?
yeah.
There's been this subconscious pattern saying to be loved, I have to do this, or I have to make people happy, or I have to look a certain way. And that is the dialogue that's happening in the background, even though the logical mind is saying something else. When we begin doing that over and over, we're beginning to say, this is how I relate to this person. This is the filter I'm putting on. You mentioned the word confirmation bias. That means our brain then begins to look for evidence to support what we're already thinking. Once again, it's Friday and he's not here. And once again, here I am by myself making dinner for all the kids, putting them all to bed by myself because we've been thinking that all day. So that is where the dangerous part is, I think, because it's true that we're frustrated. But what you're offering is not digging deeper into that well of the line that's being built in our head. You're saying, let's step outside. Let's offer a loving, kind approach. Because if we look at how Christ relates to us, he doesn't just keep nailing in
And
his,
he could.
he totally could, but he woos us with his love and understanding and care and affirmation.
Yeah.
And so there's this whole other side that I think is working not just with how God models it, but working with how to help our brain get on the side of it,
Yes, it's
right?
training our brain. Even when I was praying and partnering with God along all of this, I
Mm,
think, okay, if I'm going to renew my mind, I need to be in God's word. I remember when I was asking him, Lord, where do I start? I'm reading, I'm learning, I'm growing. But I felt like he was saying, Anne, there's greatness in Dave. I felt like that became one of my prayers. Lord, show me the greatness in Dave. Show me what you see in him. God is all about that. And so I was praying, like, Lord, you need to train my brain because I'm seeing only the negative. And I've had women say to me, you don't get it. There's nothing great. And what I'll say is he's made in God's image, whether he knows
yeah,
Jesus or not.
right.
And God's cheering for him.
Yeah.
So it's like you're getting on the same side of Jesus and praying, like, show me those things, Lord. Show me in my mind and my heart. And then
Mm.
help me to communicate that. And so mine started simply because can't be, oh, honey, you're just amazing if I'm
I
doing
get that. I'd be like, no.
that. And so I thought, well, I can start by noticing what he's doing right. So that's
Yeah.
part of training
Mm.
brain and start noticing what he's doing right and just thank him.
Mm.
That's it. And here's why I didn't thank him before. Well, who thanks me? I do everything around here,
Sure.
you know?
Sure.
It's that pride part. So it just started
Mm.
simply, hey, thanks.
One night we're sitting at the dinner table, and I think the boys were maybe middle school age. Now they're married with kids and grandkids. And she just says, "Hey guys, before we eat, I want to say something to Dad." And she just turns to me and said, "Hey, thanks. You work so hard. Thank you for providing for us and this meal. We take it for granted." I remember the boys looking at us like, "Can we just eat?"
What's
Yeah,
happening?
there's a book on the kitchen hutch right behind her that's telling her to do all this stuff. And I'm like, she's just doing what's in the book. My chest started puffing up. Even though I knew it was probably something she should do, I felt like I was the man. I didn't say anything, but I can't believe how good this feels.
Mm.
Words of affirmation. The tongue has the power of life.
Life and death.
Proverbs 18 is I felt life come into my soul
Mm.
from my wife who just said something that simple. And it was just the beginning of a different journey for us.
I love that so much. And I also can hear the voices of opposition saying, no one says that to me. If I say that you're doing a great job and you're the man, then I'm negating everything else that I've said. How can I then say you're perfect? I feel like if I'm saying an affirming thought, then I'm saying you're perfect. He's like, all right, then I'm good.
Yes, that is exactly why I didn't. And my friends who we've walked through this together, I just called my friend not too long ago. We walked through this together. And I said, Michelle, I didn't, when I knew that I should, I didn't because I thought he'll think I'm satisfied and it will
Right.
enable him to stay in this mediocre, not less than mediocre
Totally.
spot. And she said, that's exactly why I didn't do it. He's fine. He's super confident. And if he thinks I'm really happy, then he'll become lazy.
I'm the only guy here.
So is that true? If we were to say that, like,
No,
what's your take on that, Dave?
it doesn't work that way for guys. Same for women. When you critique, words of death, just discouraging, most men, this is what I did, either withdraw or just stop trying. I've been
Mm.
trying and it looks like I'm not doing anything. She didn't even notice. Even when she was satisfied, she still had a tweak or a critique. I did 9 out of the 10, but I didn't do that last one. The typical guy just gets discouraged and
Ugh.
picks up his ball and goes to another park and
Mm.
said, "I'm going to play over here for a while." And it's usually called work or sports or something else.
Yeah.
But when she started affirming and believing, and it wasn't fake,
No.
because there were still
Right.
words of truth and hard things
And
had to
that's
be said.
important. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean we lose our voice. I don't want to be this doormat. I want to be
Yeah.
genuine in who I am.
When you are saying you're a good man,
Mm.
we try to say this constantly throughout the book. If you're married to a bad man who's
Live.
abusive and verbal,
Yeah.
Harm.
this is a different deal. We're not saying just say you're amazing when he's not. You need to get safe. You need to get help.
For sure.
This is
Yeah.
a good-willed man who's trying to
Yes.
do the right thing. He's just sort of clueless like I was, and he's missing it so many ways. When she started speaking life, and again, this didn't happen a day or a week or a month. This was over a long period of time.
Mm.
First of all, I didn't believe her because I was like, "You've never said that before." So
What do you want?
in right now. And then as she started to say it more and more, and she got more specific with her comments, it wasn't just you're a good guy. Here's what I just saw you do. That was amazing. Thank you. I felt like she was saying, "You're this guy." And I was feeling like, no, I'm not. It didn't make me discouraged. It made me like, I want to be that guy. I
Wow.
want to be better. I want to be the guy she says I am. And so I'm just saying, wives, this is how a man's motivated. You believe in him, you speak life in him, he's going to run faster than he ever ran because he's like, you see something good in me? I don't even see that goodness in me. Or you see me, you help me. We were interviewing Matt Chandler. He's a pastor down in Houston. He made this comment, and you put a crown on your man, he becomes a king. And I'm
Mm.
like, that's how it is. When you say he's a good man, he becomes even a better man. I'm just saying that's been an
Amazing.
experience. You would know maybe better in the brain science part of it, but it did become very motivational for me to be a better man, better husband, better dad.
I wanted him to change, and I thought my negative words would motivate him. And so when I started changing, it's almost like you put a mirror up of saying,
Yeah.
what is it like to be married to me? That was a little sobering. But what happened was Dave started to change. My motivation wasn't manipulation or wanting him to change. It was like, Lord, I need to change. There's some things in me that I need to take a serious look at. Not even just with Dave, but with our kids too. You can get in that rut of just constantly, especially
Sure.
teenagers, seeing what they're doing wrong or what they should or shouldn't be doing. And we say negative things. But when we ask God, show me who you've made them to be. Show me the greatness. He'll do it. He will really do it. And Dave started to change, and it was miraculous because it gave him energy.
Something you brought up was the idea of expectations. We have to understand that there may be some unrealistic things we have seen modeled or thought we were going to get. I wanted to read something you said because I thought this perfectly defined that concept. You said, for me, a life of intense performance pressure had led me to develop certain subconscious perceptions and expectations of what marriage should be. In my mind, Dave Wilson was going to be my first place trophy, the completion of every part of my life. He would be everything to me that my dad couldn't be. He would woo me every day of our marriage, just as he had done when we started dating. He would listen to my needs and he would lead me and our kids into spiritual and emotional maturity. He was my ticket to the life I had felt the pressure to attain for years. I would finally win the guy, and the credits would roll at the end of our romantic story. And I didn't know I had any of these expectations, but my disappointments and feelings of being let down by Dave revealed the hidden expectations of my heart. I think I walked into marriage like that, going,
Yeah.
this guy was like this, and now this is just going to be how it is.
Yes. I think we all do, and we don't even realize it starts out as this desire. I wouldn't
Right.
even said I had those desires.
Mm,
Suddenly, after you see the real person, and the same for us, they're seeing us and all of our flaws. All of a sudden, those desires become expectations. Now we're disappointed. And this is what you get into on your podcast. Where did all that come from?
Hmm.
For me, I am a perfectionist. In
mm,
my family, if you have an area of conflict that continues to come back up, most of us do have the
yeah.
same area come up. Mine is always, where are you? Why don't you
Mm,
see me? Why aren't you here for me? It's the theme. Look into my past. I'm the youngest of four. I wasn't noticed. I wasn't
mm,
seen. I had no idea this was going on. But I think there's a part of us when we have those gaps or those wounds or even the
yeah.
trauma of our past, we assume that my
Mm,
spouse is going to help heal those. And what happens is they only, at times, it accentuates. So then it can go back to, is it me? Am I flawed? It's such a cycle.
It's important to recognize that when we're in that state, we're only thinking it's him, he needs to change. But
Yes.
if we can step back and see there is some stuff that I'm putting on as a filter to even see what's going on in our marriage, that's the part that I need to work on because that's the part I can control.
It's the only part you can control is
Yeah,
you.
Yeah,
right.
I think
I've tried to control Dave for years.
it didn't work. And I'm doing the same thing. It
Yeah.
goes both ways. You read where Anne wrote, I thought he was the ticket to the life I wanted. I think we all think that about our spouse.
Yes.
When our book, Vertical Marriage, came out, we had people find us on social media. And the biggest question we got is, I think I married the wrong person. Help me.
Mm,
We get that so often. We marry the person we think is the ticket to the life we wanted. You didn't marry the wrong person. You're looking in the wrong place. You think a
mm,
person or amount of money, vacation is going to be the ticket to the end all. Nope, you're going to be disappointed at some point in everything. The answer is vertical. The only place you're not going to be disappointed is in your relationship with Jesus Christ. And when you find life in Him, turn to your spouse. Now you're not a taker anymore. You're a giver. That's a different marriage. And we knew that. We're teaching that around the country. And yet we're still in this struggle. It's
mm,
so easy to fall into. You're angry and disappointed and hurt, and you take it out on the other rather than like what Ann just said, look in the mirror and say, what am I bringing to this marriage? And one of the reasons I was running all over doing all these jobs, we used to joke, hey, Dave's got 5 jobs. He's a pastor of church. He's Detroit Lions chaplain, da da da. And we used to think it was funny. And then we realized I'm running outside the home because out there I'm getting affirmation I never got in my home growing up. 2
yeah,
alcoholics
yeah.
and a dad that left my mom when I was 7. And again, all
Oh,
that I brought in, we thought we're new in Christ. That's the old, the new is coming. Guess what? We are new in Christ. But if you don't process this, you're bringing it.
right.
And it's going to
Yeah.
impact your marriage probably in a really negative way until you get a grip on that. Say, okay, where was Jesus in that? How does Jesus want to heal that and heal us and take us to a place we would have never gotten to on our own?
That's what you talk about in your podcast all the time.
Yes, definitely. I think there is a lot going on under the surface that when we begin to look at that and have tools to know how to process it, not just awareness that this happened, but what are the action steps I can take to work through these emotions when they come up? So
Yeah.
that's actually where I wanted to go next with you guys. We've seen the reasons why there's plausibility for somebody to have some issues in marriage. Maybe he's not doing this, and maybe I have my own expectations that are wrong. So, what do we do with that? Where can we start to learn to speak life into
Yeah.
these things in everyday situations?
That thank you part is big. And this practicality is when you say that prayer, Lord, show me what he's doing right. Help me to
Mm,
start noticing those things. Also, when Paul says in the scriptures, take every thought captive. I didn't do that because I
yes.
felt like I had a right to think about the negative because the negatives were happening. Why wouldn't I? Am I just going to live in denial? Oh, he's amazing. No, that felt so fake to me. There is some truth to taking our thoughts captive, especially what we're learning now about brain science. We know that we create a highway. So why don't we do it in a different way? I thought one of the things I would harp about in my mind is what I thought it should look like for Dave to lead spiritually. But I had expectations and I had
Mm.
seen these men and I assumed that they were doing it a certain way. I would complain to Dave. I call it sophisticated nagging. Paula just told me that Steve's reading the Bible every night to the kids. And I just dropped that.
Oh, you want me to be like, Steve? Why don't we just take our kids over there then? Drop them off. See you in an hour, Steve. Do what I can never do. I thought I was doing a pretty good job, but my wife says I'm not. You're better. So here you go.
My prayer was, Lord, show me the things he's doing. He goes upstairs. He's praying for the boys before they're going to bed. And I had that prayer. So now I feel like the Holy Spirit leads our mind and our thoughts and our eyes. I'm watching him and he comes out of the room and I said, man, I'm so jealous. He goes, what are you talking about? I said, watch the boys and they're clinging to every word you said. I go in there and it's absolute chaos. They don't listen to me, but there's a power that you carry that I don't have. It's pretty amazing, actually.
The truth is, we're sitting in a bedroom that we turned into a studio in the same house 30 years later. And where that happened is right there on the stairwell. And I can tell you right where I was standing, where she was sitting when she said those
Mm.
words. Do you remember when people say something that hurts you? You remember when
Sure.
somebody says something that powerful, you just did a good thing.
Right.
I'm looking at her like, really? The next night, I'm running upstairs.
Yeah.
I'm running in the bedroom. I got a little Devo here. It was so motivating. I'm good at this. They listen to me. I've got this
Yeah.
window of time in my son's life. All that from a little comment instead.
Mm.
I wish you'd be more like Steve. And just that comment. One of the things that you probably picked up from the book that I think hopefully wives will feel when they read this is God has given you amazing power.
And
Mm.
influence.
You have power and influence. And man, when God hands you that kind of power, it can be to build up or tear down. You can use it to build or destroy. The way Ann started using her influence in my life literally transformed me into a better man.
Here's another thing I started doing. I started praying like I'm a verbal processor. So if I
Yeah,
think
me
it, I
too.
say it.
Yeah.
That can be very dangerous and terrible.
Especially when you're married. I don't know how Dave is, but my husband is pretty quiet. So I could out talk you all day long if I am not careful.
Yeah.
Dave's an inward processor. So
Mm.
this one night, here was my prayer. Okay, Lord, everything I think, I say it. I need to stop doing that. So I would take a breath if I was ever going to say something. And here is my prayer. Lord, should I say it? Lord, should
Mm.
I say it? And then if I got a little green light, when should I say it? How should I say it? And so I feel like I'm in training now. Dave comes home this one night. He had a busy day, preaching 3 times. He's on the sidelines of an NFL game. He's getting into bed and he flippantly says, man, I've been getting all these critiques lately on my sermons. In my head pops this thought. Well, if you would just study the scriptures more, I think your sermons would be way better. Then I say, Lord, should I say anything? And this is the thought that came to my mind. And don't forget, James 1 says, if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives generously. So this thought pops into my mind, and I say, I can't imagine what it's like to be you. You have thousands of people, because our church was big, thousands of people depending on your walk with God. That must
Mm.
be a weighty thing for you to carry. And
Wow.
then there's just silence. And then he pulls me over, he hugs me, and he whispers in my ear, you are my life. That's way different than what would have happened if you were just getting the word more. That's the power we have as women.
Right.
If somebody else would say that, Even a person in my church, which most would be strangers, and they come up and say, "Hey, that was great." I smile and say, "Thank you." But
Mhm.
I think in my mind, they don't know me. She knows everything.
Mm.
The ugly, the bad, the dark.
Yeah.
That's why I'm like, "You are my life." I didn't think, "Hey, I'm gonna pull her together." I just responded. It's like, wives, you have that power. Nobody else
Mm.
has that kind of power in your
Mm.
life, but you do. God could give you a way to take this marriage to a whole
Mhm.
nother place.
Mm.
I love that. And I think you are sharing about that in a way, like you said, Anne, you're not going to be fake. You really do the best sermons ever. I'm so proud of you. You're saying, I feel this other thing. Holy Spirit, help me
Yes.
know how to build him up with this. And maybe there might be a moment where you might say, how can I help you have more time with God? Is there something I can do to support that? But you're not just blurting it out. You're not denying it either.
Yeah.
God's not saying that's not true.
And I think that we as a spouse, you're gonna
Yeah.
sharpen your spouse more than anybody else. And
Yeah.
to speak the truth, I think is really important.
I just thought of this. I don't even know if we put it in the book. Maybe we did. Another night, same bedroom, same scenario. Sunday night late, been
Oh, this
preaching
is
all weekend.
this
I crawl into bed and she just says, almost under her breath, "Man, I sure wish the guy that led our church lived here." That's her
Oh.
comment. I'm not even
Oh.
sure I heard it right. I'm exhausted. I turn, I go, what are you talking about? She goes, "Yeah, man, I was at church this morning and you were on fire preaching with this passion and casting vision of where we're going to go. And then you pray with this passion. I hardly ever see that here. You come home, you're just dead. You're done. You're done. You're done." And I'm
Wow.
talking about speaking truth.
I love it.
I needed that.
Thanks, Anne.
I
That was so
jumped. I
helpful.
stood over and I'm like, "You think I'm a bad husband? I know the husbands in this church. You're married to the best husband in this whole thing." I did not respond well at all. I'm not saying it's the right way to say what, but it was
should probably said it better.
it was truth. The next morning, I'm in my little bedroom office and I said, "God, were you speaking to me last night through Ann?" And I felt like the answer was yep. And I remember thinking, she's right. I
Mm.
lead with energy and passion to my work and to thousands of people that I will never really even know their names. I come
Right.
home and I've got nothing left for the four most important disciples in
Mm.
my life, CJ,
Right.
Austin, and Cody. It
Yeah.
was the moment where that comment made me go, "Okay, God, I'm flipping the switch. I am coming in this door at the end of the day and I'm bringing my best energy because they deserve it more than anybody else in my life."
Mm.
We interviewed Matt Chandler and he made this comment. He says, when I'm driving in my driveway at the end of the day, he's a pastor of a big church. And he said, "I flipped the switch. I call this my second shift. And it's more important than the first shift." So he said exactly the way she wanted to say it. Because she had been speaking so much life, it wasn't a boo moment.
Mm.
There's so
Okay.
much the positive that she
Okay.
believes in me and thinks I'm great and says, "Hey, I got to
Right.
say this." It was received like, I need to hear that. So now it's like, thank you. You made me better
I
with
love
a
it.
hard comment.
Yeah. Thank you for being so vulnerable about that.
She's-
Truly, because I think we've all had those moments in marriage and we wouldn't be sitting here sharing about that publicly. To close this up and give us a practical application, my question then for you, Dave, is if she had been in that boo mode and hadn't said other things positive and you were able to receive it positively, how could she have said that differently? How could she have said what she was feeling, which is you aren't here and you're not giving the same energy in our family as you do to church? How could she say that in a way that would be giving life?
Because I think a lot of women feel that.
I think one of the biggest things is to figure out your ratio, life to death or positive,
Okay.
negative.
You
Yeah.
know, like the Gottman Institute says, it takes 5 positives to negate a negative.
So if your man is hearing life, but real moments where you call out something specific and say, "Thank you," or "I see this in you," I think that's a big move. Even as
Okay.
it's only been out 2 or 3 weeks, we've been getting people commenting saying they didn't realize how much negative they were saying to
Mm.
their husband, vice versa. And they're going to start changing that. So that's where you start. And I
Okay.
think you look at your husband, and again, you need to pick the time. You know,
Yeah.
right when he walks in the door or right when you walk in the door. It's not when your kids are all running around. So you probably need a quiet moment on the deck or something where if there's something really bothering you
Mm.
and you just have to say it, like Ann said, I would say, should I say it? If it's yes, how do I say it? When do I say it? And say it in a positive but truthful way.
I could have started out with the positive. And I see you at church. You're an amazing leader. But it feels like you're really tired when you get home. Is there a way I could encourage you? Like what's going on with you? Do you feel tired when you get home? Is there anything I could do to help energize you or feel more passion when you're here? Because that guy is so dynamic and I know that's in you. Is there anything I'm doing? If
Sure.
you'd be a dud. No, but say that. Is there anything I'm doing that's sapping your energy? That's
Yeah.
a humble thing to ask.
Sure.
And I know my inward self would be like, I'm not asking that. I'm amazing in here.
And I think
Yeah.
on the other side, the person receiving that call, and it could be going the other way, but if the wife's speaking to the husband, I would say to the guys, make a vow not to get defensive. Just say to yourself, I know I'm going to fight against this. God, give me the power in this moment.
Mm.
Maybe I need to come back later and say,
Yeah.
hey, I want to push back on what you said. But in the
Give me some
moment,
time.
ask God to make you humble enough to say, I know I've got flaws. You're using my wife as a gift to
Mm.
sharpen me. Help me be humble. I want to grow. And she's the best person in the world. Help me grow because she's 24/7 and she loves me and she's committed to me and she sees all the good and the bad. No one better to see it than her. This is what oneness is. We're making each other better. The chapter where Anne writes about Azer Kenegdo, a helper suitable. Adam
Mm.
in the garden means that helper is not a subservient, it's a partner who's a
Yeah.
warrior in the garden with you,
Love
standing
it.
toe to toe and can really make us better. I always want to get defensive, thinking, no, I'm not. I need to be humble. And I've done that with my men's group. Let's
Mm.
sharpen one another. If you see something in me, I'm giving you access. Tell me. And I
Mm.
know I'm going to push back and say you're a jerk, but you're not. You're really helping me. And so I think that's on both sides. It's like receive it as a gift from God.
I have great girlfriends that love Jesus that will call each other. And like, here's what I'm saying. What do you think? And my friends will, and I'll say, oh, no, don't say it like that. That's awful. And so we'll practice. But then we'll also say, tell me what time you're going to bring this up because I'm going to be praying.
I feel like I could talk another hour, but I know I want to close this up here. Tell us about the book, how we can find out more about you guys and learn more about this.
Here's the name of the book How to Speak Life to Your Husband When All You Want to Do Is Yell at
And
Him.
we didn't think that would be the title. That was a working title,
Yeah.
but it is.
It is. They
It
kept
communicates it pretty well. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. And you can get that on Amazon. You can listen to us at Family Life Today podcast, or it's on radio as well. And you can reach out to us on social media at Dave and Wilson. We'd
Just-
love to connect with you and share some of the things that God's been teaching us.
Awesome. Guys, thanks so much for being here today. This was such a valuable conversation. I appreciate every moment of it.
Thanks, Alicia.
As I said in the beginning of this episode, I appreciate that they are super vulnerable about some of the things that have gone on in their marriage, like the things Anne has shared. Like at the end of that conversation, he's like, I don't even know if we wrote this in the book, but I'm going to tell you, man, because it's just so human. It's so relatable, where we as wives feel like we're feeling these things and we think we're helping by sharing in this way. But in essence, we're hurting our marriage. And that's the last thing we want to do. But this is the only way we know. So the more we do it, the more we see it. I just desperately and gratefully appreciate how they are willing to be vulnerable about that and to not dismiss that it's okay for him to be like this, that God's got it. I love that in this book, and you even heard a little bit of it in this conversation, give different ways that you can still feel these feelings, but express them in a way that's going to build life. I greatly value this as a book. I greatly value them as ministry leaders in the area of marriage. Highly encourage you to check it out. It's called How to Speak Life to Your Husband When All You Want to Do Is Yell at Him. To come full circle with this moment, I want to know from you what stood out to you. Do you struggle with this? Reach out to them on their socials or reach out to me. I would love to have a conversation with you about this, to talk about how we process these feelings, because they give great examples of what to do to respond and how you can speak to your husband in this way. But what do you do with the feelings as you're feeling them? That's the tricky part. I would love to be able to talk to you more about the method that I've created, the ADD model for managing and working through our emotions. Would love to just listen to your story and to just say, I've been there, or here's something that might be helpful. You could reach out to me on Instagram or Facebook. On Instagram, it's at Alicia Michelle Coach, or Facebook is the Alicia Michelle Coach. Would love to connect with you there. Have a great week. I will see you back here next week for another episode. Take care, friend. Thanks for joining me today. For full show notes and helpful next step resources, visit aliciamichelle.com. And if you enjoyed this episode, I'd be honored if you would leave a 5-star rating and review. Thanks for being here. I'll see you next week.